So Tristan, who controls the world?
Oh, obviously, my brother and me. You haven't seen his hand symbol? It's all secret Illuminati stuff. The conspiracy theorists are right. The people who accuse me of being the Illuminati are right. It's all Andrew. No.
You must have learned, being imprisoned and cancelled, you must have got further up the chain of who runs the world.
Oh, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. In fact, going to prison, being cancelled, this attack on me has connected me and Andrew politically on a level that we weren't at before. We've made far more important friends, millionaire, billionaire businessmen, politicians. Lots more people are happy to sit and talk to us, certainly in private, maybe not so much in public these days until my case is over, than ever before. So yeah, if you were to ask me in a very simple term, Andrew uses the term matrix all the time. What controls the world? Money. Big companies, big interests, they can buy governments, they can buy policy, they can make regulations, which are basically the same as laws, and they can get the people to dance when they want them to dance, stay home when they want them to dance, stay home, clap when they want them to clap. And I think money controls the world. And the people.
Do you think that's right, fair, just?
Yes, I do and I don't. I'm not one of the people out there. You have people who I met a man many years ago, played in a band, I guess the word is bum. And he was showing me these documents for a completely new political system he came up with. It wasn't democracy, it wasn't communism. He was like, oh, in this new political system, it would really take off. And I'm like, bro, you play in a band and you live in Eastern Europe. Like, what universe do you think that this is ever going to, even if you're right, even if this is the golden ticket for all of humanity, how do you expect anybody to listen to you when you're sitting there playing in a band all day? So what I do is I try to change the world on more of a micro level. I don't try to change who runs the world, who controls the world, how the monetary system works, how fair or unfair it is. I try to look at the game and play the game as best as I understand the rules. So changing on a micro level can be something as little as inspiring young men to get into shape, to care more about their health. That should, in theory, lower the cost of healthcare for every developed nation if everybody listened to mine and Andrew's advice. And it's the micro level change that I'm more interested in pursuing myself. I'm not trying to run for office. I'm not trying to change the laws. And the world is set up the way it's set up. So I just try and win the game, as you have. Get a bunch of money, put it in your bank. Oh, what's the money worth? What's it backed by? I don't care. I have lots of it, and it can buy real things. It buys real food and real properties and real cars and real experiences, and it gets you plane tickets and private jets and all the things that you want. So do I really care what it's backed by? It's not an issue that I try to alter, and I never will.
Do you think maybe in some ways, whoever controls the world, the governments, the big corporations, they're just running a company like you're running a company and I'm running a company, and if we were controlling the world, we might run the company in a similar way?
I believe I'm a far more moral person than some of the people. So some of the large companies and the people behind them that control the money, I feel like they're happier to flush human lives down the toilet than I ever would be. So when you look at some countries, Saudi Arabia as example, that's run like a business, and the leaders and the people sit around, they think, okay, we have this many resources, we have this much space, how do we best make our company profitable? How do we make it safe? How do we make everyone inside of it happy? So as with real companies, I've had good bosses and I've had bad bosses. I think the world as a whole is overwhelmingly, unfortunately, controlled by evil money. And I see that with the wars that happen, the people who die every day, the lockdowns and some of the restrictions they try to put on people, how little they care about the little guy. I would be a far more moral leader. I wouldn't send young men to die in a pointless war. I wouldn't finance wars, try to start them for profit, benefit, nothing. If I could end all war and be financially broke myself, there's a button right here I could press, good, I'll live on the streets for the rest of my life. Whereas this clearly isn't the attitude of some of the people at the top. They're happy to enrich themselves, enrich their families, and who goes to die? The poor people. Poor people go and die, and of course now I have some money, but I am essentially a poor person with lots of money. I'm a working class guy, I come from a council estate. It's me and my people who have to march off to their wars and go and fight and die. I said this the other day, I was naming the number of children certain UK politicians have, numbers of sons. I can't remember the exact names of the exact kids. I Googled them on the spot. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was like, this minister, this member of parliament, all have sons aged 17 to 25. And I said, well, unless their sons are going with me, I wouldn't go, because go fight your own bloody wars. If it's so important, like you harp on about it in the news all the time, or stand in the House of Parliament and lecture people about the importance of these military operations, good, send your own kids. But they never do. I think I know the statistic, during the entire US intervention in Iraq, of 545 sitting members of Congress, only one had a child who was in the services who even stepped foot in the country of Iraq, which is terrifying. So I think that leaders should lead their own soldiers into battle. I'm too moral. I don't want to run the world the way that everyone else runs it.
Do you think, because I think about this a lot, because the reason I want to know who runs the world is because I am in the world.
Yes.
And therefore their decisions affect me. And I agree with you, the best thing you can do to rebel is to get really rich and build your own infrastructure, an ecosystem of which you are the leader of. But still, those powerful people, whoever they are, make decisions which could ruin my life tomorrow. So I feel like I owe it to myself to figure out where it goes and what got them there if I want to create change. And sometimes I think there's just some evil people and their family lineage of thousands of years were evil people.
Yes.
And then other times, like politics, I think some people go in with good intent and then power corrupts, and for them to fit within the system, it changes them. Have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's not just power that corrupts. I think it's actually a lack of understanding of the system. So if we take the American Republican primaries, for example, a lot of people were harping on about Vivek Ramaswamy, who I don't dislike. I like him. But the reason I was Trump should be president guy, not Vivek, is because Trump is now prepared for the enemy he's facing. He was put into office. He thought, I'm the president. I can do what I want to help the country. And he found himself, remember Russiagate, Russia rigged the election? He was fighting this in court for 3.5 years. And it's like, oh, well, okay, it turns out Russia didn't need the election. Oh, time's up. And then he was out. I feel like Vivek could have been blindsided with some nonsense claim. I mean, for example, he's of Indian heritage. Okay, he becomes president. Maybe India interfered with the election. He'd be sitting there for 3 years, 3.5 years, fighting this imaginary case, not getting what he needs to do done. And then it's, all right, time's up, Vivek, get out. So the reason I was a pro-Trump guy is because it's not just about power corrupting people. I think people who get into power maybe don't realize how little power they have in the position that they're fighting for. Whereas Trump now knows the rules. He knows who he's up against. He knows who in the deep state's trying to take him down. So I think he's the most qualified man for the job. So I don't think anyone necessarily gets corrupted. I think that the suits knock on the door and sit down and say, oh, congratulations, Prime Minister. Well, this is the way it works. And if you don't like it, shut up. That's what I think.
Yeah, so it's interesting you talk about the guy in a band who had a new model of the political system.
It was terrible, by the way.
Yeah.
I looked it over.
Right, okay. But the political system surely is broken. It's not a democracy. It's not of the people, for the people. So, and does it not take a naive, delusional human to change?
Yes, it's not of the people for the people. It's of the money for the money. And that's the way it works in, I think, most political systems. Most democracies, it's all about the money. And I don't think countries like our country, you're British, of course, really have a chance of any radical change. I really see it, and I see that both parties are center, one center right, one center left. They're basically the same. They argue about tiny little minor differences in and of themselves. But I think money controls both parties. And in the United States and some other countries in the world, you can have a maverick who comes along with a new idea, a new way of doing things, a new way of saying things, and he can be swept into office from relative obscurity. Then he chooses the other people in charge. Systems like England are the scariest because, for all those watching who don't know this, the way that the UK elections work is there's hundreds of mini elections for each member of parliament, and then the party that wins the most seats in parliament gets to form a government, and then they select their prime minister from the people who are sitting in the house. So nobody can come along, anybody, and just say, I've got a new way of doing things, please vote for me. Vote for me where? What, Coventry South, Luton North? Then you're a member of parliament. You have no power. You're not directing the government. They're not going to form a government from you. So I look at, what people like Lawrence Fox are doing with the Reform Party and stuff. And I'm just thinking, I'd love, not because I necessarily adore what the Reform Party stand for, but I want new faces in our government and I want new people sitting in those chairs. And I'd love the Reform Party to even find enough people to run in every single little local election in the first past the post system to absolutely, sweep the numbers, get 200 people sitting in the Houses of Parliament. And at least then we have a new way of doing things. But it can't happen. If Lawrence Fox or any of these people running for the Reclaim Party, even is it Reform Party, sorry, even get their single seat, it's going to be Labour or Conservative who form the government, who have their Prime Minister. And there hasn't been a revolution in British politics since the invention of the Labour Party when they first came around. So it's scary and it's sad, and I don't think there's any way of fixing some countries. And England is most broken, to answer your question about is it broken. It's more broken in places like England than it is in the United States.